doing today?
I'm great. How are you?
Doing good. I'm here with you in this beautiful facility you have that you actually help run and operate.
Yes.
That's good. So, 2021 games. Let's talk about that. So, let's start with what got you to the game. So, you weren't a CrossFitter before you did the Open. So, talk about that process.
Yeah, I was very brand new to CrossFit. I actually, in January, there was another adaptive athlete, Derek Wida, and he actually reached out to me on Instagram, and he would just said, "Hey, there's an adaptive Open. I think that you should, do this. It's CrossFit specifically, but you're in shape. I think you should do it." And I said, I didn't know anything. I didn't even know what the Open meant. Mm-hmm. I was like, "Do we go somewhere? Like, what is this?" And he was like, "No, it's." And I said to him, "It's like, well, I'm not in CrossFit shape. Like, I've seen that. It's like a different level of conditioning. I can't do it." He said, "Well, you've got 3 months to train. It's January. Let's get going. So might as well." So that's kind of the approach I took. I talked to my friends and I said, "Why not? Probably gonna regret not trying." So started training for it, and here we are.
So talk about that experience.
Yeah.
You had a video that kind of went viral.
Yeah.
And I thought it was obviously pretty inspiring. Let's talk about that moment. Obviously, I mean, there's many moments that we can talk about those. Let's talk about that specific moment. In CrossFit, we always cheer. The two people that get cheered the loudest are the people that finish first, and a person that's left on the floor last.
Yep.
And you got to experience probably both ends of that. So let's talk about that particular when you're on the floor.
Yeah.
And
So, man, that moment was a lot. Leading up to the games in the weeks and the months, obviously I knew that I was new to it all, and I just experienced a lot of and so, doubting my abilities and being able to keep up with the workouts and everything. So, my coach, Scooter, who was also, caught in part of that moment by the games, he was telling me all week, and in the weeks even leading up to it, as he was training me, like, you have to believe in yourself. None of this really matters unless you actually believe that you can do it. So that moment just showed a lot of emotion, and I honestly have never experienced that many emotions in an 11-minute time frame before. Everything of just feeling everything that was leading up to it, and remembering that I needed to believe in myself, and then feeling that support from the crowd. I remember the first time I got that weight over my head. It was a PR for me. Mm-hmm. Went into it with a ton of doubt. I was exhausted. I was honestly done. And to feel that energy from the crowd of just cheering me on just to do it was, like I said, I wasn't winning the event, but it was all of the emotions at once. I was humbled, I was a little embarrassed, I was excited, like all of it. So I've never experienced something like that before.
So looking back at that now,
yeah,
what kind of emotions do you have when you watch these clips?
I'm so glad that they were able to catch those clips for me. It means a lot because it feels surreal. Like, even in the moment, I was like, is this a movie? Like, it almost felt like an out-of-body experience. I was very much in it, but didn't really even realize at the time what was happening, because I was just so focused on just trying to do what I needed to do. And so now looking back, it's been really, really incredible to have the feedback from people of just saying how much maybe encourage them, or just getting to know other people's stories as well. And it's this cycle where people say that it encourages them maybe in some way, but also that turns around and encourages me because it provides a certain accountability for me. So I just want to keep going. It's if that happens from a couple months of training, or and feeling that belief in myself and really starting to see that I can do this for the first time. I just want to keep going and learning.
Yeah. So you're no stranger to fitness.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, this CrossFit's a brand new thing. Talk about your fitness adventure before CrossFit.
Yeah. So it's funny. I did not grow up doing anything athletic or physical activity. I was born with a birth defect, so I've had a prosthesis since it was time to learn how to walk, age 1. But I just never did anything with sports or athletics. So I moved to Nashville about 7 years ago. 2015, I joined a boxing gym, and that was my first experience of doing a workout that I actually enjoyed. Yeah. So I just started learning my competitive nature and how much I loved that. I learned to kickbox, and when I did that, it kind of was this moment of, I used to make jokes about like, oh, I have one leg, I can't kickbox. And, you know, once I learned that and realized that it was really more fear than anything holding me back rather than actually logistically not being able to, it opened up this whole world because I was like, I love this. What else have I been saying no to that I thought was impossible, but really it's just been self-imposed down fear. So it just opened up, you know, then that's what got me into weightlifting. I picked up my first barbell in like 2019. Like I didn't know anything about anything. And so just having that experience and gaining confidence, and I just have wanted to learn everything. You know, so that's a huge appeal for me of CrossFit. There's so much to learn and put together and cross train. And you know, what do you know?
It works.
So yeah, it works. And so I've just loved that. Obviously, I'm very new to CrossFit specifically, but it appeals to my competitive nature and the things that I genuinely love to learn and working out.
Have you ever competed on a stage like that with that many fans or anything like that? How surreal or awesome was that?
Yeah, it was surreal. I honestly was so anxious going into that week because that was my first experience competing anything. I didn't even do a sports team or anything. So like, I grew up in music. I love music, and that helped me have that mindset of repetition and practice and discipline. But other than that, it was completely new. I've never had to do something, you know, physically challenging in order to produce a certain result in front of people. So that was a lot. I was like, well, first time competing, might as well be the CrossFit Games.
Why not? I wish we all could be that like that, I guess. I don't know, but,
yeah, I mean, first year of adaptive divisions, I was really, you know, it was an amazing experience, and I was honored to be able to be there, and also just like the timing of it was just like, this is awesome to have this opportunity.
I mean, you got to meet a bunch of other athletes. You mentioned Derek. You mentioned some of these other athletes that were out there.
Yeah.
I mean, was it more interesting not only just competing with them, but also learning their stories and you know, sharing that, you know, that competitive, you know, not only being on a competition floor, but you guys knowing you're there for the same goal and that you're starting something new. You could be starting a whole new revolution, not only just in CrossFit, but for future youth.
Yes, absolutely. That was incredible and so encouraging for me because I was so anxious, and some of the programming I was struggling with, you know, because CrossFit is all about learning everything, and I was new, and in those moments, that's when I'd look around and talk to other people and hear their stories and their struggles. It was so encouraging and accountability for me. I was like, if they're showing up and have this amazing attitude, like I need to do that too. And there was just a sense the entire week of, hey, this is bigger than us. This is bigger than a competition. This is, like you said, it's the start of something. There's not really, you know, there's the Paralympics, but besides that, there's not a whole lot of platforms for adaptive athletes to be shown. And that was one thing that I so appreciated about the Games, because there are adaptive competitions, which is awesome. There's not a lot of adaptive competitions that shows adaptive athletes on the same venue at the same time as non-adaptive. Because if you don't grow up with someone with an adaptation, you're not going to turn on the TV looking for an adaptive competition. But I think that more that we showcase that, it just it can raise the standard of adaptive competition, and it just starts, you know, lets people at home sitting that maybe they've just had an amputation or whatever it is think like, hey, I'm going to train to do that. I can do that. I see that it's possible. Let's go to the gym. So,
did you have a favorite event at the Games?
I mean, that last event with the video went viral. I think it's funny. It was my favorite in that it was just felt like the culmination of everything that I experienced. And I went into it, I can't express it enough, I went into it exhausted and like empty and just like, I cannot do this. And to have that much of a turnaround of like emotion in it meant a lot to me. There are certain movements from everything that I definitely loved. I love anything on a rig. So, so there's, I think, events 3 and 5 I had. You know, some stuff for. So but parts of all of them, honestly.
Now, you know, obviously you have a prosthetic, but not a lot of people realize that. You know, for competition, some people have different prosthetics for different events. Can you kind of explain like how many prosthetics do you show up at the Games with? So
I had 2. I just had a running blade and so this is what I use for every day. It's called a microprocessor knee. So this is what I wear for most things. Right now, there are different things. There's swimming prosthetics, there's lifting prosthetics. I personally do not have those. Kind of as you enter that world, there's a lot of things with insurance
Sure.
and all of that
Yeah.
good stuff. It's
Yeah.
a fun world to navigate. So I do not have that besides running blade. So for the most part, I either use this or I take off my prosthesis. So
Yeah.
even like squatting with a barbell, I actually do pistol squats just because of depth. And one thing that's really interesting to learn is like people see adaptive athletes and they assume it's all kind of the same thing across the board. But every person is different. So there's above the knee prosthesis where the amputation is, how they attach the leg. All of those things are very nuanced per person, and so it makes an adaptive competition really fun to watch and also really difficult to grasp sometimes and to program for.
Sure.
Because everyone has very different adaptations that you might do the same exercise, everyone might be an amputee, but they're all doing the exercise differently.
Sure.
And I think it's really cool to learn those things, but also kudos to CrossFit for taking it on to have that, because it does complicate things.
Because like you said, I mean, you're grouped in lower extremities, but there's, like I said, there's upper knee and lower knee, and actually your prosthetic goes up to your hip, correct?
Yeah.
So I mean, it's the range of motion's a little bit different as opposed to someone who has a below the knee amputation.
Yeah.
And there's but that's something sounds like CrossFit's willing to change and adapt to. So there's talks of it expanding next year. And what are some of the things you want to see CrossFit expand in when it comes to adaptively? Besides more divisions, what else would you like to see?
I mean, obviously, like the more that it expands, the more opportunity there is, I think, for more competitions, even adaptive divisions in the various competitions throughout the year, and also growing those divisions too. So the programming can be nuanced a little bit more towards above the knee or below the knee, whatever that is. Regardless, I think it's really great that it's even an opportunity right now, and I think that the more we do it, if you look at non-adaptive CrossFit, when it first started, those athletes, every year it sets a bar to beat. So every year people go into the games knowing they can beat the score from last year. So I think that's what I'm really excited about to see with adaptive CrossFit, for people to understand that adaptive athletes, it doesn't have to be, I say this a lot, it doesn't have to be about participation medals. It doesn't have to be like, you got there, good job. Like, no, competitive adaptive athletes want to be held to the same high standard. Obviously, we're going to do things differently, and there are going to be specific limitations in certain movements, but we can still compete at a very high level. So I'm really excited, that CrossFit has a certain reputation of a very high standard, obviously, and I'm just really excited to see it continue to grow, and so every single year we can keep beating the previous year's scores and records, and just get more and more people involved.
So what do you think? I mean, you're new to the CrossFit space. What do you think? I mean, you probably obviously heard some things about CrossFitters and stuff like that. And here you are, you show up at the games. And the first thing you see is you go to the NOBULL locker room. And then it's like, has your perception changed at all? Or, I mean...
it has. It's funny because people always make jokes like CrossFit, like drink the Kool-Aid or, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But I have such an appreciation for it, honestly, for the athletes. And I know people like to make jokes about certain movements or whatever, like pull-ups. Everyone loves the pull-ups. But finally experiencing it and realizing how much of it is strategy and pacing and the mental and physical challenge coming together. I don't think I've ever done a type of workout that brings such a mental and physical challenge together. That makes it such a cool space, and also the community is so cool. That was probably the biggest. I went to the games and I was like, wow, these people love CrossFit. But also the support that there is there, that you feel that in the energy, where no one, I never saw or heard anyone cut from watching other athletes compete or being on the stage. I never heard a spectator cut someone down. It's such a positive energy.
Uplifting.
And so so at the end of everything, people were so they were really nice with me, watching, and I'm struggling through that event, and you're still supporting me. Thank you so much, and very positive feelings towards it.
So let's talk about post games now. So, any plans on competing at Wadapalooza?
Yes, hopefully. So I'm registering to do the qualifier.
Nice.
So we'll go from there.
Okay.
And then there's an adaptive competition called a wheel wad.
Yes.
So I'll be there. I'm registered for that in November. And then, of course, people make all those jokes. I came back from the games, and so it was 6 months till the open or whatever it was. And I was like, can we just Give me a second. No, but I'm excited. I plan on doing all of that. So wheel wad qualifiers, Wadapalooza qualifiers, wheel wad competition, when the CrossFit Games Open comes out again.
Yeah, fully drink the Kool-Aid. Huh?
I will. I will see. I'm loving it, and I love that there's a space for functional fitness competitions for adaptive athletes.
Besides competing, what are your goals for the next coming season? I mean, you already made it to the games, so obviously going back to the games is obviously another goal. But I mean, anything besides? I mean, a podium finish, winning.
I would love that. It's definitely so. It was funny because the games, everything was so new. I felt like this year was just about me learning a movement, just literally learning what everything was. I learned handstand walks 2 weeks before. Like I learned double unders while I was at the games. It was just that kind of experience for me. So, but also being forced to do those things in a very public stage. Now I'm like, well, I don't think it could get more pressure than that. So now I come home and I'm excited. I'm like, I want to learn everything and I want to do it at an even higher level. So I think it gave me a really good idea of what I need to work on and what I'm strong at. And so a lot of this year is learning how, for me personally, how to use my prosthesis better. I'm looking into some different type of equipment that I can use for lifting and just being able to not just focus on being strong, but move my body efficiently. And just, as cheesy as it sounds, keep breaking down boundaries of what I think I can do.
It's not cheesy at all.
It's just it is a really, really real thing. People always ask about motivation, where do you find your motivation? And I think it's so easily confused with a feeling, you feel like working out, you're motivated to work out, you show up. It's no, it's about finding a why that's much bigger than that. And for me, it's just, once you get that feeling of, I thought that I couldn't, I literally thought this was impossible to do, and it's not possible to do, that's such a freeing feeling that I just want to keep finding out what's next.
Did you see a big uptick in your social media in terms of followers and stuff like that?
I did. That was very unexpected. I posted that reel. It was so sweet of the photographer and videographer who got it for me. He sent it. He's like, hey, I hope you don't mind. I made this video. So I posted it, and I've gained over 200,000 followers.
Wow.
Yeah. So and it was definitely a bit jarring at first. I was like, I was not expecting that.
Yeah.
And it was funny because when I first came back and that started happening, the guys that I work out with here and work with, they know me very well, and they could tell from my posting, they're like, you're getting in your head about what you post, and you're overthinking it, and they're like, you're a dork, but be you. They're like, that's people want to hear someone's story and the real. I'm attracted to a genuine story, and so I don't know if I said that right, but I think they were just encouraging me. They're like, hey, whatever you post, you don't really have to worry about portraying a certain look, just be you and be real. And I think CrossFit does that pretty well.
Yes.
That's something I really appreciate, and I want to emanate that in my own story.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, obviously, let's talk about the people at home that said, when you say that, that say they can't. That you used to be, especially the younger children, younger generation. Are you ready to? Are you prepared to be that person, that role model? I mean, there's really no way to kind of learn that.
It's funny because I don't think sometimes I don't think how I realize the ripple effects of that. So it's it was a great moment for me, and then I'll hear someone's story of that encouraged me in this way, and it's that. When I posted it, I wasn't even thinking that would be an outcome. But so I try not to get overwhelmed at that thought, but rather than it's really exciting. I think the more that people can see adaptive athletes thrive, the better. That it's not really just about getting by. You can actually live what you want your life to look like. You can make happen and do it at a high level. And so I'm really excited.
So is he.
But I would love to do more speaking engagements and really to communicate that there's no difference between me and the person at home. I know that sounds cheesy and people hear that and they want to toss it out, but I said that even to my coach as we were on our way back. because I was gaining followers, and I said, what I don't want to happen is there to be this disconnect that happens between when someone watches that video and says, that's really cool, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Because I can't express enough. I used to tell people every day, I'm like growing up, I'm the least athletic person you will ever meet. I would say those words if we were put into like an athletic situation. And really, I just was tired of lacking confidence in myself, and I made really conscious decisions to do something small every day to push myself. And that just grew exponentially. And by doing those small things, now I'm doing things that I never imagined myself doing 7 years ago, a year ago, you know? And so I think I always want to communicate that. So like, if you want to do something in your home, like, will it be easy? No. Will you want to quit a lot? Yes. Will like it be really a lot, probably harder than you realize? Probably. Yeah. But you can still do it by doing something tiny every day, and
small victories.
Small victories is what it's all about. Without the small victories, you don't have the big victories.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Well, that's so awesome. And we appreciate you spending time with us.
Of course. Yeah.
We look forward to seeing you up on the leaderboard in next season. And,
yeah.
best of luck.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.